All right. Hello and welcome to Four Wives and the Mic presents Wives' Tales, the review. Thank you for joining us. We are going to have, I think, at least one more wife join us for this discussion. But at the moment, we have, I'm going to introduce yourself.
Carla Monroe.
Hey, Carla Monroe. So I will put all our details in terms of our Instagram details and everything in the description box, so do click and have a peruse of our profiles, and if you like, no, not if you like, you must just click follow and all that jazz. I mean, even if you don't do anything afterwards, at least give us a follow. Thank you. All right, so moving on very swiftly. All right, so I'm hoping you've noticed, we have changed up I say we, it's me and my sidekick. We have changed up the format for Four Wives and the Mic. And I guess at the moment it's all about stories and sharing stories that I have heard in a fun kind of, adult story time kind of way. So, I mean, in terms of the stories that you've heard so far, what have your thoughts been?
Well, I found each of the stories really engaging. And I think I can see kind of a different element of every type of wife in every single story.
Okay.
So I think the stories are definitely, relatable. I would say the one that resonated with me most, it was the one about where the wife kind of feels like she's, I think, all consumed by the role of being a mother and being a wife, where it kind of seems like maybe the husband's career is like flying and it's taken off, and kind of left with this, I guess, kind of crisis of identity, where she's a little bit like, okay, so who am I now? Aside from being a mother and a wife, who am I? And I think that's kind of something that every mum and wife actually can relate to at some point, because we've sacrificed 9 months being pregnant, and then after that it's the rest of our lives being a mum. So it's really hard sometimes to kind of navigate and find out who you are in between all that, and figure out actually who am I outside of these kind of roles. So I think for me that one probably resonated with me most, but I could definitely see elements of every type of wife in each of the stories.
Well, okay, so let's jump straight into it. That was episode 3. So if you're just joining us, that was episode 3 of season 3, and that was called Runaway. So in that story, well, no, actually, I'm not going to give you a brief synopsis. You have to go and now watch it. So
I pretty much gave it away, but okay, cool.
No, but there's the little details in there that maybe people would like to discover. It's like reading a good book. You might go back to it a couple of times.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm trying to think if that was based on one particular person or a combination of quite a few people. It's funny because I remember having this conversation with, so I've worked in quite a few schools in different roles and whatever. And I worked in this nursery years ago, and this mum was like, can you please just call me Sandra? I can't remember what her name was. I'm just giving her Sandra. But she was saying, can you please just call me Sandra? Like everywhere I go, everyone just calls me James's mum, or Mrs. whatever, like James's mum or Mrs. whatever. She's like, can you just call me Sandra? And I think at the time, I didn't really think much about it, but as a mum now and as a wife, that is such a powerful thing to actually, number one, have that confidence to actually ask, but to actually say, I'm still me, I'm still a person. Can you please just relate to me as me? Can you try and talk to me as if I'm my own person, as opposed to this add-on to this man or this add-on to this child?
Yeah, exactly. And also not feel guilty about it, because I think this is another thing that as mums we feel you know, and wrongly so, we feel guilty about the fact that, you know, we're still looking for our own identity in between all this. It's kind of like, I guess, the role of being a mum and being a wife, it feels like it's all consuming. And so it's something that we should just be happy to embrace, which we do. But I think, you know, aside from that, we shouldn't put so much pressure on ourselves just to be those things, you know?
Yeah. But it's difficult because culturally we're bombarded with what is perceived as perfection all the time. Like everybody has their idea of what a perfect mother is or what a perfect wife is, and depending on what family you marry into, you know, you're always going to consistently have that thrown at you, like every single day. Like you can't have a conversation without some form of guilt being thrown at you. Oh, Jesse's son is now reading to level 5. Like there's always something. It's a constant thing. And yeah, you're right. You know, we shouldn't actually berate ourselves as much as we do, but it's just so hard when it's just constantly there. It's always there.
Most definitely. I definitely can relate to that. And it's that whole thing of like society putting this pressure on us as well. So yeah, I think it's just really important for not to lose sight of who you are, because I think in a way that's often what helps you get through those times.
Yeah, no, I agree, definitely. I mean, we're all stuck. Well, we're currently all in quarantine at the moment, which is partly why we're doing this via video. And I guess a lot of us are feeling it because, you know, as mum, as wife, you're basically, well, from women that I speak to, I'm not going to generalize, say within my circles, there's this idea that everything basically falls on you. Dad could be right by the taps, you know, right in the kitchen, and my child will come to me on the 3rd floor to find me to come get her water. Like that's just, you know, while we're in quarantine, it's just like having that constantly 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because no one's getting out. You're all locked in together. And you are that person. I think you're right. It's very important to try and hold on to a sense of yourself. And I think for me, what I've tried to do is, you know, if it's once a week, I do my makeup.
Yeah.
I know I'm not going nowhere. You know I'm not going nowhere. We all know I'm not going anywhere. But I'm going to do my makeup. And it's going to take me 2 hours. So you're going to give me that space, you know, to do that. Because sometimes you just need that mental break.
Like, oh my God, most definitely. Like even this evening, just like spending half an hour, you know, doing my hair and makeup, it felt so nice, you know, while, you know, Dad put the boys to bed. It was actually, you know, really nice. And then to the point of where my eldest was like, Mum, where are you going? You know, we're not supposed to be, you know, mixing with people. We're like in isolation. I was like, I'm not going out. I've just got, you know, a little Zoom call. So he was just like, oh, wow. It was quite nice just for a change, actually take that time up for myself and pamper myself, even albeit half an hour or whatever it was. But, you know, it made a difference.
Okay, so we've got our 3rd wife who is ready to join us. Sorry. Oh, where did she go? Oh, there she is. Hello.
My little one would not go to sleep. Literally, he kept waking up, and I was like, "Oh my God, you need to sleep, seriously." I snuck out the room. But nice to meet you all.
You too.
Right. So, what was it about that episode that stood out to you?
I feel like a lot of men, especially in the Nigerian culture, especially those that live in Nigeria, do sometimes treat their wives like that. I do feel like it's almost like once they've got the wife, it's like, okay, I've got her now, kind of, you know, she ain't going anywhere. I can kind of still do my own thing instead of still trying to continuously woo her, which I find very, very different to how, say, Caucasian couples are. They seem to constantly, I can't say for sure because I don't know, but they do seem to constantly want to kind of, you know, put into their sort of relationship and still date the person and make them sort of still feel really like, oh my God, she's my number one type thing. Whereas I do think that a lot of Black people, and especially African men, they do kind of take a back seat once I do is over. Not all, but I'm saying some. And that's why I feel like that story, it sounded bad, but it didn't sound like it's something that couldn't happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I mean, of course I agree. I wrote it. If I didn't think it was something people could relate to, I wouldn't have written it. But no, you're right. I mean, there's so many women that I've spoken to and so many experiences that I've, either experienced myself or been witness to, that I just think, actually, as African women, why do we tolerate this sort of behavior? Why is it acceptable within our culture? I can't necessarily speak for other cultures, and I can't necessarily speak for other, ways of life or whatever lifestyles, but I have seen, similar things kind of reoccurring right across generations. So what is it about our culture that we kind of allow this sort of behavior? Like, why is it acceptable?
Carla, do you want to talk? Because I can go in on this subject.
Well, I was just sort of thinking about my answer, really, and I think a lot of it comes from self-worth. I mean, it depends how deep we're going to go with this, but I do think a lot of it
is not deep, honey.
I think a lot of it is to do with how much you value yourself, I think. And especially as Black women, we're always at the bottom of the pile, aren't we? Everything's an extra fight for us to be heard, to get anywhere, to be listened to be taken seriously. And I think sometimes we kind of carry those things, subconsciously, really. And so when we're treated in a way that maybe isn't fair, we don't often question it. And I think that's probably where it stems from. It's quite inherent, and I think it's quite ingrained in our cultures, across cultures. It's not just an African thing. I think you find it in West Indian culture with Black women as well, reinforcing that idea that, as Black women, we're not really valued even by our own men.
And I have such a huge problem with that, because as Black women, we ride so hard for our Black men. So hard. And that's the thing, it's to the point where we even fight ourselves for these Black men who don't rate us. They don't value us. They don't uplift. We're not all of them, but I mean, quite a handful of them don't value us. They don't uplift us. We're the first ones to basically be insulted or abused on social media. We're the first ones that are, bypassed for the job, or the first, it's just, it's really heartbreaking. I say this because I think of my daughter, and the battle in me at the moment is just that, how do I shield her from that? And how do I let her know that actually you're very beautiful, even though society says that she's not beautiful? These men that look like her brother, these men that look like her uncle, her father, these are the same men who will potentially reinforce that idea that actually you're not beautiful, you don't have a voice, you're not special. How do I explain that to her and let her know that actually it doesn't mean that you're not as good? It doesn't mean, how do we manage this? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a big topic.
This is what I mean. This is like a whole new
big topic.
thing.
That's not even anything to do with this story.
No, but see, this is my thing. This is why all the stories are open. So none of the stories are, if you all listen to, you both listen to it. It's very, very snappy, short stories, and it's literally about taking a glimpse from life, and it's about trying to understand, well, how could you get into that situation, or how could you get out of that situation, or what could happen next. None of the stories are concluded because, quite frankly, we're all still married. All the people that I know that I took the stories from are still married, and they're still having to deal with these situations. I'm still having to deal with these situations and having to deal with the consequences of some of these situations.
Yeah.
So for a daughter to see her mother treated in the way that wife was treated in Spare Tyre, what are you then telling that girl? Is it okay for her to end up with a man who then treats her that way?
Exactly. And
You see what I
that
mean?
is, with that story, it does, like Carla said, it is a lot about her self-worth, because really and truly she should have been able to stand her ground to her husband and say, "Do you know what, if we're going to this party together, we need to go in the same car, we need to leave together. I am your wife, we sit on the same table. Either that or I don't come. What's the point of me coming?" Like, I think that, like Carla said, that women are so used to kind of taking a back burner or kind of just let it go. No, sometimes you do have to speak up for yourself. Sometimes you do have to call out things that are not comfortable. And I think that that is a problem in the Black society. We try and kind of cover it and say, "Oh, do you know what? He's just being a guy." No. No.
Yeah, but
can't.
it's easy for us to have to say this in the conversation, as we're just throwing ideas around. But practically, on a day-to-day basis, how can a woman who's constantly being told, "You have no voice, you have no voice, you have no self-worth, I don't want to hear what you have to say, what you say is irrelevant, or you have no right to say this, or you have no expertise in saying this," how can we then empower that woman? Or where is she going to find that confidence and that power to say, "Actually, I do deserve better," or "I can speak up," or "I can make changes"?
I think you hit the nail on the head a little bit there. I think that a lot of it is generational as well. I think that what we've seen previously has not necessarily always been that happily ever after ending. A lot of our parents are not still together, or they weren't together for the majority of our growing up. So we didn't actually have that stable environment to see how a man should actually treat a woman properly. All we had is ideas and ideologies, or we had television to tell us what it should be like. But we didn't have real sort of, like, I could probably count on one hand how many of my aunties were still with their husbands and stuff like that. So it's not that it's ingrained within us. Whereas if I compare it to, I went to a private school, and literally 90% of their parents were together. They'd come together, and it does make a difference, and it does tell a lot on how you sort of go forward in your own relationship. A lot of the things that you see, you emulate, and if you have nothing good to emulate, what do you emulate? Do you understand? So you're kind of learning as you go along.
Going back to what you were saying, Nikki, it's about I think it starts in the home, to be honest with you. It starts with parenting, but I think as parents we kind of have to take as much action where we can.
Oh. Well, can I just say a big thank you? Like, I really appreciate you guys being super open and digging deep and all that jazz. I will try and do this regularly, so you guys have to make sure you watch it regularly.
Oh.
But no, thank you so much for joining us. And yes, if you would like to follow Abby or Carla, I will add their Instagram tags in the description box, so make sure you do follow them. And also, yes, make sure you follow us on YouTube, subscribe, like, and share. Please share with everybody, because we are sharing with you.
Yay.
Anything else, ladies?
Thank you for having me.
It's good. It's nice to have these open discussions, and you know what? Maybe this can help make a change in, even if it's one person's life. So let's do this.
That was a good ending. I like that. Okay, well, thank you again for joining me, and take care of yourself. Oh, stay indoors and wash your hands, everybody. That's it.